passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Live from Budapest, it's the Uninformed Handball Hour's one and only live show at the Women's EHF Final 4. It's Chris O'Reilly here, joined by Brian Campion.
Hello, Chris.
And we have Alex Kulesh. Just like in January, right here in Budapest, Alex is joining us from another place, this time not locked in quarantine, but locked in Copenhagen because of other work duties. And he'll be joining us in about 10-15 minutes. But first, we have our special guest joining us from Vipers Kristiansand. It's Nerea Pena. Nerea, how are you?
Hi, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm fine, excited in Budapest. Really waiting for the Final Four.
Now, I've seen you at the Final Four many times in Budapest. Often as an FTC player, hanging out with the Spaniards, having a cerveza or two. Finally, you're here as a player, but unfortunately with a very severe injury, knee injury. How's the knee?
It's getting better, really slowly. I am struggling still in rehab process, but I have to say that is in a way going it has supposed to. But it's, as you say, I have been here a lot, so many years. It's nice to be back in Budapest because I was living here a long time. But I come again as a supporter. So I think I have a kind of karma on me, or I don't know. I would like to play, but I can't. But I will support my team, and I think it's nice just to be here.
When you got the injury originally, was that one of the first things you thought of, that you perhaps won't be able to play at the Final Four?
It's a kind of injury that has no like an estimate time of rehab. So when I got the injury, my aim was to arrive to Final Four. So I was struggling not only against my injury, not against the calendar, because I was saying like, okay, Final Four is in 2 months, Final Four is in 1 month. Okay, I will not do it. So it's more it was like a name. It was helping me for rehab, but in a way it's also, for the head it's not so good because I could not do it. But in a way I'm still here. I'm helping the team from another side. So I'm just like a third coach now.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us more about that. We're going to ask what your role is this weekend. How you have plenty of experience. You are part of the team. How are you trying to support the players this week as best you can?
Yeah, as a player, of course, I can do nothing on the field. But I told them before we came here, they asked me to help also because of the language. I talk Hungarian, so it's easier sometimes to arrange everything in Hungarian. So I told them, you can ask me what you want. I will be here for you. I'm I don't know how to say, like a chief for the team. Of course, I have no the position, but I will do everything they need to make their best and to perform the best this weekend.
How good is your Hungarian?
I cannot say, the Hungarians have to say.
Okay. As good as your English?
I think I speak better Hungarian.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah,
I struggle more with English.
It's not the easiest language.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So the outside, I just thought it was impossible.
It was hard, but I was living here for 9 years. So in a way I had to.
That's when you hear a lot of people living in Hungary and they often don't even try to.
Yeah, but I was in a really Hungarian atmosphere.
Yeah.
Ferencváros is a really Hungarian team with a Hungarian heart. And of course, when I came, nobody spoke so good English. I did not speak English as well. So it was a kind of, struggle in the beginning, but it was helpful to learn the language.
And I think it's nice to hear from you this weekend because you have some unique insights to most of the teams here. You've played against Metz this season, you played for Esbjerg last season, you've been the arch rival of Djur for many years, and now you're with Vipers. So it'd be nice to get a few words on each of the teams from your own perspective, but I think it would be remiss of us not to talk about Vipers first, and this has been your first season with the team. And you have been around, you've been playing in Spain, in Hungary, Denmark, and now Norway. What makes this team and their culture so different and special in comparison to what you've experienced in your career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really different. It's I was in Esbjerg last year as a first Scandinavian country. Then this is my first season in a team, in a Scandinavian team. And it's different. So I come from Spain, of course. I was living in 9 years in Hungary, so I have Hungarian as well. So it was a huge change for me in culture, in weather, of course, important. light in the sky, things that makes your life different. But I have to say that in sport, that is why I came to Norway. It's been great. We have a fantastic team. It's one of the things why I came to Norway is a dream team for me. We are like all the school players, I would say, the people against I have played for a long time. And it was for me a dream just to play with them. Unfortunately, I could not. But still, being inside is really amazing. To see them to be in the Final Four, I think we have shown everyone that the kind of things we can do on field. But of course, this is the weekend, this is the key. Everybody's fighting for this. And if I go a little bit more like to the other teams, in my opinion, I think this is from the last 5-6 years maybe the toughest Final Four. The one which the level is quite similar from all the teams. I think Esbjerg has made a really great season this season. Mets had, of course, had beat twice for us. I can say what I see from them. They have been really good during the whole season. And this year, of course, as always, they were first in the group. They are here. I think we are really in a similar level. If you ask me for who I will bet now, I cannot choose. Of course, I will bet Vipers, but but I cannot choose. It's a time that I don't have any favorite for this Final Four.
Do you think that loss, the Győr loss in the Hungarian Cup, kind of made the other teams sit up and think, oh, maybe, as you said, it's a lot more even this year than other years? Or was it before that you were even thinking along those lines?
I don't think so. For me, I think Hungarian League, Hungarian Cup, and Final Four is a different thing. This is a weekend. Even if your season was not so good, you come here and can be another history. So, of course, now everyone is questioning Győr because they lost the cup. But I think for them, this is the Final Four. You are now fighting to win the title of the whole season. It's not only about the last weekend. So, no, I don't think so.
And your girls won it last year, coming into this as the defending champions. Was there much talk among the players that were there last season as to what exactly went so right for them? Because you said it's a weekend in itself. There are some magic ingredients that make a team come out on top. Is that something that's been discussed even in the build-up to this, to try and replicate that in some way?
Not in the last days. I think in the last day we were more focusing about this year, but we have been talking about what happened last year, how was the Final Four, and all of them they agreed about it was something special about this weekend. Of course, on quarterfinals they did a great job against Rostov that no one expect, but they came here and they were also as a spectator. It was also a surprise for me to see the performance they did last year. They played great, for me, well-deserved gold medal. And they say that it was something special, like something was good, everything was working, the team was there together. And they want, of course, the same for this year. And I think the difference is like this season has been more normal. COVID was last year, so it had been up and downs. This year it was more regular. So this year is more, I think, my opinion, about preparing the matches, the performance from the whole season that has been really... We had some ups and downs, but not big ones. And we were quite stable during the whole season. But of course, we come here knowing that we have been beat by Mets twice. We come here in the most important match, that is the semi-final, and we need to prepare really good this match to change the last results.
I think probably a good point to ask then about Mets, without giving any secrets away. What will change then?
I think it will be more about preparation. We really will prepare the match in another way. It did not work the first 2 matches, but we will try to make some things probably different. That is gonna be probably, it's gonna change some part of the games. Oh, this is what we want to do.
I think every player seems to have a different opinion on this, so I'm interested to hear yours, the mental aspect of these prior games. And I think it also comes into a factor for Győr, but for Mets now, you played them twice this season, 2 losses. Does that matter really? Like when it comes to the game tomorrow, when it's 45 minutes gone and it could be a draw at that point, do things like that matter? Do you think to the team as a whole, or is it purely like last season most of these players were part of the team that won the title? They were 5th in the group. They came out of the depths of hell to win the championship. So maybe none of this really does matter.
I think it's individual. So for some players can be in the brain, for some they are like over that. The good thing about our team, we have so much experience from all the players. So they have been in a lot of situations like that. So I'm not worried. I hope we will be in the last 45 seconds with a ball in our hands because I know we will do it. I really trust on that. In another teams, I can have another experience about this, but in this one, it's totally the opposite. It's more about performance, my opinion. I think we will have to run the game or we will have to be in control, and then it's going to be nice. If we have a critical situation, I'm sure we will do it.
Talk to us a bit about Ole Gekstad as a coach. What was it like first getting to know him and working with him compared to other coaches that you've worked with in the past?
It has been a big change. In a way, it's more calm. I'm used to have a more temperamental coaches. So in a way, it's nice, but I'm also a temperamental player. So it has been a change. But the good thing about Ole is you can really talk to him. And I like to talk, as you say, a lot. So it's nice because you can really communicate. He's open to listen, to hear. So that's also important, especially as I told you before, with experienced player who has a lot of ideas, who has a really tactical mind. It's really, really nice.
And it's been a big transition in the team this year as well. I mean, players left like Henny Reistad, who was so important last year, Emilia Heg-Arntzen as well, Molinona, and then you brought in the experienced heads like you and Bella. And I mean, it seems like, just looking on paper, that the players who've been able to play the whole season, who've come in, have really contributed. So it's been nicely spread out, the team. There's not too much of a focus on certain players. And the style has changed in some way. How much work was that at the beginning to make that happen? It's a completely different Vipers team in some ways.
Yeah, it has been a really big job because, as you said, a lot of players change, and not only players, if not nationalities. We have come a lot of foreign players as well. So the first thing that changed in the club has been the language. They have been talking in Norwegian until now, and now we speak in English. So I also feel that for them this is a big change, even if they speak perfect English, of course. But it's also a kind of change because, when you are in a situation where you have to a critical situation, the words come differently in English than in your own language, of course. So it has been a process. In the beginning, also in the field, you could feel that we struggle in a way. But this is the way when you change players in a team. It has to be a process. You cannot buy players and wait that the success will come. This is handball, it's a sport, it's about job. And I think we have been working really good. We have been working, as you say, as a team. That's maybe what was the difference with some other teams, that we really play as a team. If somebody is missing, there is another one who is ready there. We have a really, really long squad. So we are there for the same objective, is the team, and is to be here and try to get the title.
So a completely different kind of situation when you went to the FTC, where you didn't know English or Hungarian, and you had to kind of find your own way. And then you come into this team now, and you feel like maybe you don't need to learn Norwegian, or do you give it a go as well? I have
a really big inside fight with myself because I really want to learn Norwegian, but I did not put energy. Also, my injury was in the between. But I really want to learn Norwegian, but I didn't start, so it's my fault. I always ask pardon to everyone because it's bad. I know.
But we do have a question from someone on Twitch here, and they're asking, what Hungarian food do you miss?
Oh, a lot. I love Hungarian food. So one of my favorite food in Hungary was the töltő paprika. Is a pepper with meat inside and paprikas and pepper sauce. I love it.
Peppers.
Yes, they have also töltő kaposta is with cabbage, but this I don't like it. I like it with the pepper.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Norwegian food? Are you a fan?
I have to say that they have some typical Norwegian food, but I have not been in a typical restaurant. But I like they eat a lot of lamb, and I love lamb. So
And the fish?
Fish, for salmon I eat. I have salmon like for breakfast as well, but I prefer the lamb. Yeah.
Now let's move on a bit to the other teams that you have some experience with. I think we could start with with Esbjerg.
Yep.
You were there last season.
Yep.
A few changes to that team as well.
Yep.
I think one of the things that always stands out for me is how they manage to stay so strong with so few players. Yeah. It's been like 12 players all this season. I think they have 14 with them this weekend. So what is do you have an insight to what the thinking is there? I mean, I'm guessing budget has a part to play, but also Jesper seems to have a lot of trust in the players that are there that they'll get the job done.
Yeah, I cannot speak about budget because I don't know that, but I know that they have been playing with a really short squad for a long time. The reason I don't know, but what is you can see or everybody can see that it's working because they are here this year. The difference from last year and this year, last year the tendency of the team was not so good. When I arrived there, I was the number 12, so they have been 11 players. I was number 12 because they had some big injuries. This year, I think they were quite more stable. They have been losing one or two players, but they have been keeping, and the level of the team has been really high. I told them like last time, I think well deserved that they are here because they have played a really amazing season. Yeah, it's different. I think sometimes it's not only about the team can be similar. They had some change, but no big change. The base of the team is almost the same. But sometimes you cannot fight against the tendency. When a season goes wrong, it's like, of course, you fight to make it better. But sometimes last year it was 1-2 goals. It was not like you lost by 15 and okay. No, it's like when you throw the coin. Sometimes it's like, or you goes with you or against you. But this season is well deserved they are here. I think they will be a big fighter against you tomorrow.
Talk to us a bit about Henny Raestad, maybe, because I think she's a player that's obviously on everyone's lips, and she's probably one of the most informed players in the world at the moment. What's she doing so right or so well? Yeah,
I think she's running good the team. She has a brain, and physically now I agree with you. She's one of the best performing player in right the moment. And going to Esbjerg and running and taking the responsibility. Yeah, I think this was a really good sign. I told them last year when they signed her, I say, I think you are bringing a great player. It's really important for them, especially when they don't have a big squad, but they have a good performance player in the moment. And yeah, of course, for them it's really important. And this weekend, she will also show how she can run the team.
It seems like what you were saying is there was the potential there already last season from what you saw. A lot of the games were incredibly close. They always seemed to drive. Like Esbjerg, I remember watching, particularly last season, the games were hilarious because you never wanted to seem to win a game by 4 or 5 goals or lose a game by 4 or 5 goals. There was always like ebbs and flows. There might have been with the squad as well. But the potential to get to the Final Four was clearly there. Is that something that you felt at the time?
Yeah, I have to say I did not follow all the matches because I have been injured and I have my time off as well. But what I have seen from them, it was really good. Yeah, I think they have been fighting against really great teams during the whole season. They have been first in the group. That means something. And especially in the quarterfinals, that they were really close there. In the moment they have to be, they have to be. So that's also the teams for me that they deserve to be here. Not only the ones who play great and make everything easy and they buy players and they play well. No. Also the teams who really are fighting, struggling, and then still they can get it. That's also why I think they are here well deserved.
Of course, you've huge experience with playing against Gjør, and I think when everyone thinks of a Final Four in Budapest, often Gjør is the first team that comes to anyone's mind. And you probably know Ambrose Martin pretty well yourself.
A little bit. Only a little bit.
So, what is it about Gjør that? What's the secret sauce?
The secret, first, to hire the best players like from over Europe, so that can be something. The budget as well can be something. So, no, but also that, of course, Ambrose is a great coach. I always say that for me, he has been the best coach in my career. He runs really good the team. He knows where to put, how to. The experience is also a plus on them. But I think that they have a really great team. And also there is something that they is always playing with them to play at home. They play home. They have the full hall with them. They have great supporters as well. So this is also, something that they count with. But this year maybe they have had some ups and downs. For example, what you talk about the cup, and everyone can say, like, oh, they are not ready for Final Four. I don't think like that. I think that the Final Four is different. It's some spirit inside this weekend that will make everything different.
So what do you do against Gjør? You played them for 9 years. What do you do?
I have lost, I think, the 85 or 90% of the matches, so I don't know if I am the best to talk about that. But yeah, it's also something special in the Hungarian league between Ferencváros and Győr. So it was also like it was always like a final for the final, like a really final for us. You have to prepare the match. They have 3 fantastic goalkeepers as well, so this is a little bit difficult to prepare against. Sorry. But the key now, SBR has to really make a great team. I think also depends on, I don't want to say so loud, but they also depends a lot of the goalkeepers. So if they are there inside, then it's really difficult. It's going to be hard to win against them, but they need goalkeepers.
Is there a automatic kind of mental advantage for Győr whenever they play against teams? I mean, is that something you felt with FTC? I know it was, as you said, a special derby every time you face them, but knowing that, 85, 90% of the time that they've beaten you, is it something hard to get over?
It can be good, it can be a good thing, but it can be a bad, because when they are always the favorite, the ones who is playing against them is like, okay, we don't have absolutely anything to lose. They are the ones who are always like, sometimes it's a big drama when they lose a match. This is a sport. I think it's also more productive when you lose sometimes, and then you learn from where you lose. When you win everything, it's not a kind of boring, but it's a kind of hard to make yourself better. Yeah. So I think it can be sometimes negative for them as well. To play home is good, but it can be bad. Yeah,
I guess, well, if there's one team here that has nothing to lose, it's Esbjerg as the newcomers.
Totally, so, yes, they are newcomers. They will play against Győr. Everybody said Győr is coming from a big loss in the league, so is the moment to beat them. But Győr is in the opposite. We lost this. We have to win this Final Four. So, of course, it's going to be a big fight,
You talked there quickly about the goalkeepers. Is it possible to win a Final Four without having a major goalkeeping performance? Because it seems like every single Final Four you go to, every team who will lift the trophy in the end one of the keepers has an absolutely incredible performance.
My answer is not. I think you need a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
That's
you need a goalkeeper, but a good performance from a goalkeeper.
You need someone in the goal. No, you really need a good performance for the goalkeeper. Yeah. That's my opinion. Of course, the team is counting. They need to defend. But without a goalkeeper, I think you cannot win the trophy. But that's my opinion. I cannot make. It's my opinion.
Well, I think you've already been very generous with your time for someone who hates media. Absolutely hates media.
Not hates, but you know my opinion. It's nice to talk with you guys.
Yeah. We try to make it
really nice.
less stressful. We won't ask you for a prediction because that would be unfair. But we have, unless you want to give one.
We will win the final.
You'll win the final.
I will say my prediction. Has to be my prediction. So.
In that case, then, who do you feel will be the MVP for Vipers at this weekend?
Lunde, Katrine. I bet on my goalkeeper. I bet on that. I have to. But we bet here.
Nerea Pena, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we'll see you back in the court sooner rather than later, and on a court in Budapest.
Thank you very much. I hope that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to replace Nerea with a even more beautiful guest, if it's even possible, in Alex Kulesh. And I have producer Clemens pointing at something saying, we'll be right back. So, we'll be right back.
Start the show.
Hit the ground running, hit the ground running. Hit the ground running, hit the ground running.
Yeah, now bring the action.
Ooh.
Come on. Now.
Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me.
Now.
Give it to me.
And we are back, joined by Alex Kulesh from Denmark. Hi, Alex. How are you?
How are you, boys?
Are you getting
good to join?
Are you getting
actually?
Yeah, we left you waiting there a little bit, Alex, didn't we?
It was a great show. I watched along, so I got the live experience. So all good.
Good stuff. How does it feel to once again in Budapest be on the outskirts?
I think I'm quite used to it now, but we've worked it out. I've just accepted that Budapest isn't the place for me.
No.
So I'll stay on the outside.
But good news is, and we mentioned it on the podcast on Wednesday, that you will be in Cologne live in person, and people are going to get a lot of you on the Home of Handball Twitch channel in Cologne. So get used to that beautiful face, because you're going to see it a lot. But we got you for, I don't know, we'll do about 45 minutes or so. We'll see. Who knows? We always say we'll do things for like an hour, then it turns into 2 hours. So that depends on how much we know about these teams. We were already given a nice insight into most of the teams, actually, there from Nerea. Any takeaways there, Alex, from what you heard from Nerea?
I think, again, I fully agree that it's completely open. We talked about the men's side and how we can't pick an underdog. I also can't really pick an underdog in this Final Four. 4 strong teams. The matchups, I don't know if they make too much of a difference. I think anyone can beat anyone, so I'm pretty excited to see it. Can you pick an underdog between these 4 teams?
What do you think, Brian?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, on the one side, you could probably look at Esbjerg being here for the first time, but then they have probably Henny Rystad, probably one of the best players in the world at the moment, and one who can really win a game on her own almost. So it's hard to put them in that role. I think Metz are maybe, because they didn't play the quarterfinal, maybe a little bit more of an unknown quality when it came to the knockout matches. So you could possibly make a case there. But then again, they've Grasadi coming back in, who's a massive boost to their squad. And then, of course, you can't put Giora in the underdog position. And who do we've left? Vipers. Yes, of course, Vipers.
The defending champions, Vipers, a classic underdog.
I mean, you can't have the defending champions as the underdog. So it's at a push, maybe Esbjerg, just because of lack of experience. But then again, past Final Fours, men's and women's, lack of experience doesn't really mean anything. If we think back to 2016 with CSM Bucharesti as well. So it's really, really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I don't know where we should exactly start, unless you have an underdog, Chris.
Maybe for Chris, a question for you then. If we can't pick an underdog, who do you pick as a favourite?
I think it has to be Djur, right? And I would put Esbjerg as the slight underdogs in this one, because they're newcomers and because they're facing Djur in the semi-final. But there isn't much in it. It's not like, the seasons in the men's competition where you had like Flensburg coming out of nowhere to win it, Vardar winning it, Kielce winning it. I think if any team wins it this weekend, we've learned now that it's not really a big surprise, but the most unexpected of those 4 would have to be Esbjerg, but not because of the players they have. I think the players they have are good enough to win the title. One in particular, our unofficial player of the year last year, Henny. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe we can go through the 4 teams, like you said.
Let's start with Vipers. So we talked quite a bit about Vipers with Nerea, but there's, I suppose, one interesting fact is that this is the last season for Nora Merck at this club, as well as Bella Gulden. Do you think that brings a bit of extra passion for those players to kind of round up their careers, or it doesn't make any difference?
I feel for the 2 of them, probably it doesn't make too much difference. I mean, because Nora did it last season with Vipers, and Bella, it's like it's a one and done for her. So she's been at this club this season. She's going to Lund next season, but that's because of family reasons. So, I mean, they're kind of, as Nerea was saying, they're a bunch of really like old heads in the best possible way. They're very experienced players. They all know how to win this competition, and they all know how to deal with these weekends in general. So I think they won't try to find any extra or external motivation from somewhere, and just like for the sake of it. I think they know what they need individually and what they need as a team to win it. So there'll be no like over egging that emotional aspect, I reckon.
Oh, I don't know, Chris. I think you're
going to be the emotional one here.
Oh yeah, I go pure emotion. I think Bella Gulden probably had probably from an argument's sake, the most outstanding performance out of women's Final Four. One of them anyway, with her Oh God, I shouldn't have started this sentence.
16 goals.
16 goals. That's it. Yeah, with her 16 goals in the final back in 2016. and I think it's her swan song, and I think she's going to be going back into the Swedish league. Of course, she most likely, and we'll never see her at a Final Four again. So I think there was that little bit extra something there for her. And Nora Mork, yeah, I suppose you're probably right there. She doesn't need any more extra motivation from what she's been through over the years. You don't need to motivate Nora Mork to get up and play a game of handball. So I half agree with you, Chris.
Okay, there you go.
Well, let's talk about their route. So Vipers' route to the Final Four. I don't think there's much to talk about in terms of their league this year. They've been unbeaten in Norway, with just one draw kind of filtered into their league campaign. So they've wrapped up the home championship. But have they impressed you on their journey throughout the Champions League this year, Chris?
Well, I think something important to mention as well on their journey is also what they did last year, because it was so remarkable. And just a reminder, they played away for more than half the season because of COVID. So they didn't play a home game since December 2020. They went on this incredible European tour in February 2021, and then had to beat Odense and Rostov to get to the Final Four, and then won the Final Four at a bit of a canter. And so that itself was an incredible journey. And so there was, at the background of all of that, was there was going to be this huge change in the team. So I think in that sense, there was more of a swan song feeling to the team last year, because the OG crew were going to be moving on, and there was going to be this international field that Nerea spoke about. So in that sense, I think that's an important thing to mention for this year. And what did impress me about the team this year in their path is that they managed to integrate the players so well to play this different style of handball. And I thought they would struggle a little bit with the players they had, but everyone's really stepped up, and you just have to look at it on paper, and you have players like Bella Gulden, Marketa Yerebkova, Anna Debelic, who all came in and contributed 40, 50, 60 goals to the team, and that shows just how well they were integrated into the squad. And I think that in that aspect, finding the new stars in the team, or the team being the star, has been the most impressive thing for this squad this season, because they haven't relied on as few players as they did last year. I mean, Nora Merck, for example, has probably had her best scoring season ever, but she wasn't relied upon so much to do that. She just, I guess, had the opportunities to score so much. She's had a fantastic season. And Ragnhild Dahl as well, who was kind of a surprise package of the Final Four last season. She's come in with 62 goals this campaign at left back. So yeah, they've found a whole new way to play as a team, and that's been the most impressive thing for me. They've had some setbacks. They lost those 2 games against Metz, but still managed to finish second in the group ahead of Metz, which was really important in the end. And then they had that kind of wild card quarterfinal against Krim, and they dealt with that amazingly. They absolutely smashed them. So in that sense, yeah, I think they've been very impressive in how they've transitioned as a team and still managed to come back to the Final Four as champions, which we know from history is really, really difficult to do.
Because I think a team who's won it in the past, won it last season, and the easy thing to do would be to stick with the players you had and the exact same squad and go for it again. But I think it's sometimes a team that keeps its core but brings a few new fresh legs and a few new fresh faces in. It's a lot more dangerous than when you kind of stick or lay on your laurels and stick to what you had in the last season.
Yeah. I'm just getting a bit distracted there. Is Mickey there, Alex? Is your dog Mickey, for the first time in his life, barking?
So that was my dog, who was barking in his sleep right behind me on this couch. So I don't think you can see him, but I had to mute myself very quickly there to wake him up from chasing rabbits or whatever he was doing in his dreams. That's
remarkable, because I've met Mickey loads of times, and he's the most calm and quiet dog you'll ever meet. Yet the one time he's live, he has to bark in his sleep. But yeah, did you manage to focus on what we were saying there?
I did. So I think one interesting thing to focus on as well is so Vipers, basically they got their wild card into the quarterfinal, and dealt with Krim very easily. And then building on top of that as well, we can say that, their league campaign hasn't challenged them too much, which means that their last, properly competitive game was that round 14 game of the group stage against Dior, which they won, which is an impressive performance, big win, 30-29. But that was on the 19th of February. So do you think that has any effect on this team, basically not facing too much competition in the last 3 months?
I think the way they managed last season and how while that was having a big break and then playing so many games in quick succession, I think they're more than used to having a abnormal campaign, and with the players they have as well. I think actually they probably would have enjoyed not having a tough game for quite a while. So in that sense, I don't think they're too bothered by that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so too. I think any other team you might say, they need to be a bit more battle hardened, but that Vipers team, they, as you said, with players like Norm Mork, maybe need a bit of a rest coming into a weekend like this.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that. I think a rest is good for them, and I think a player like Nora Merck is going to take every single game seriously. She's not going to lapse at all, which means that she'll also drive the team and make sure that the team isn't relaxed going into that first semi-final. So I think it could be an advantage. But let's move on to the team they'll be facing in that first, it's the second semi-final of the day, and that's Metz. So as opposed to Vipers, Metz have just won the French Cup final, where they beat Brest in a 2-legged affair. Really close games where they lost the first leg against Brest 26-24 and then won 25-22. So they've had a bit of competition there. And but kind of like Vipers, they haven't played a game in the Champions League at all since since the group stage. What do you think, Brian? How does that route affect them?
God, you're really selling these teams, Alex. No, again, I think when it comes down to a final weekend like this, I don't think it really matters too much. But I do think Metz will be coming in with a certain amount of momentum, having won their 24th title at this stage. So they're going to be feeling good. And of course, with the addition of Grass Eddy, who's one of the best players in the world, and I think one of your favourites, Alex, if I remember correctly, we had a debate a few podcasts ago when you were trying to hammer home her as player of the year. So having a player like coming in like her, and she's also obviously played in Metz before, so she knows the team and knows how they work. That's a massive boost. And just the backcourt they have generally as well is just one of the most dynamic backcourts you'll have, with Grass Eddy, Bruno De Paula in there, who we've had many conversations over the years about, is probably one of the best one-on-one players who we've had confirmed by a very, very famous female handball player.
We did talk about this in the podcast after.
We did.
Anna Gross, who challenged me at the final evening of the Final Four in this very hotel last year, asking who the best one-on-one player is, and I needed to deliver the correct answer, I think, to have any hope of reconciling. After I was asked who the better defender is, the most ridiculous question in the world, is it Anna Gross or Nora Merck? And Bruno De Paula was the correct answer in her eyes. And it's hard to argue. At times she is incredible, and it's really exciting to see her in this Final Four for the first time.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course then you have a player like No Kandi, who is one of the up-and-comers in the world of handball. So she's just another super, super dynamic, 1-against-1. So it's a very, very athletic backcourt there. With it's just an absolute headache for any middle block when you have those three players coming down the middle.
And Louise Bourgaard as well, who is a self-confessed like headless chicken in that regard. Just like sometimes just closes her eyes, gets ready to be hit hard, and then throws the ball as hard as she can. So when you're facing players like that, all very different players, but in the backcourt, it's going to be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I remember she said in an interview one time that she finds it very difficult to find photos of herself with her eyes open, because often she's just throwing the ball with her eyes closed.
Yeah,
and
that was an interview with me.
Oh, that was an interview with you. There you go. Look, I do read your stuff, Chris.
So I think Grassetti is, you said it, I think she's the absolute key here. It's a huge wild card for them to just kind of get a player like that land on their doorstep going into the latter stage of the season. So that's incredible for Metz. And the way you're talking about it, she seems like the perfect player because she's an orchestrator. She can manage a game. She can, look at the strengths around her and make sure that they're being utilized. So with a couple of headless chickens and a couple of dynamic players around her, the one player that I believe that can manage that and kind of take it to a great level is Grassetti. I really can't comprehend exactly how much of a difference she will provide in this. In this Final Four. Do you think just having her is good enough?
Yeah, just a question back to you then, because at the start you said that you feel it's very even. Do you think that the addition of a player like Grassetti back into Metz has, in your head, made the whole thing a lot more even? That if you take her out, then maybe think, maybe Metz don't have enough to do it.
Yes and no. We have to remember that Metz did beat Vipers twice in the group stage without Grassetti. I don't know. For me, it's more that Grassetti joining them actually puts them on a favorite level for me. So kind of puts them a step further and potentially above the other team. So I have a lot of faith in this Metz team.
When you have to give the whole Metz club and Emmanuel Maynard a lot of credit as well for how they've transitioned the last 2 years, basically, because last year they were kind of no-hopers in a way. They were out of the running, really, in the Champions League and got absolutely spanked in the quarterfinals. But they've managed to use pretty much the same squad and then, throw in Grassetti as well and look like real contenders. So they took their beatings last year, knowing that it was part of a bigger thing, knowing they didn't have the players to really compete last year, but they were going to use them and build them up, and they've done that really well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Nokandi has been an absolute star this year. So she has 73 goals in the competition for them. And she's actually moving on next season. So another swan song, I think, in terms of Nokandi. I think we'll see her around for many years to come, but maybe a little extra motivation there.
And Grassetti, who's likely, I think she said earlier on that she was going to leave at the end of the season. I think her destination is unknown, but great that she was able to come back and kind of say goodbye to the team as well, because she left for Rostov during the COVID time, so she didn't get to actually finish that season. So it's a nice little bonus chance for her. Everything's
all these swan songs.
It's all these swan songs. It's going to be a great story either way. That's why I'm trying not to feed too much into it.
We're trying to build narratives.
Yeah, I know. There's so many narratives.
We'll have the box of tissues at the final whistle after we'll be crying our eyes out for all these swan songs. But yeah, I think a key player for, just before we move on from Metz, I think is probably Kaptanovic. I think she could be, or she has to be, or she has to have a big weekend if they're going to have any chance of doing it. And we've seen glimpses of that during the season when she had that huge last 16 performance when she racked up 16 saves. So they'll need her in there because they are lacking Sacco, of course, who was injured, and she's been a big player for them earlier on the season. So it's kind of a lot more pressure on Kaptanovic's shoulders now this time out. So you needed her firing on all cylinders.
Agreed. Just as Nerea said, you can't win it without a really good goalkeeper performance. And both goalkeepers they have are capable, but Kapitanovic is going to be the one they really rely on.
Maybe let's move on to Team Eshberg as the newcomers. We did talk about it a little bit. Their route has been quite smooth in the Champions League. They have 15 wins and 1 loss so far in the season. So very impressive from Jesper Jensen and that whole team throughout the season. But for them, talking about their league, they haven't had as good of a time as Metz. So they just finished the Danish league final playoff against Odense, where they came out as losers. So they won the first leg. They lost the first leg 31-27, then came back at home and really pushed it and won 35-28 against Odense, leading us into a third leg and the crucial playoff game where Odense won 25-24. Esbjerg are going to be heartbroken because of that going into this Champions League final. I think we saw the effects of a loss like that in the European League men's final, where Visaplatz didn't seem like they recovered going into that final round. Is that going to affect Team Esbjerg?
I don't think in the same way. I think there's a big difference between the European League and the Champions League Final Four, particularly when it's your first one. And from hearing the Danes here, they just seem so delighted to be here. I think as soon as they realize, we lost that final, but we're going to Budapest and we're going to take on Jur in the semi-final, that they must have gotten over it pretty quickly. I can't imagine that will leave too much of a hangover effect on them. It could, but it's also not a new thing to lose that final in the Danish league, and it probably won't cost them a Champions League place next season like it cost Płock. So I don't know. I feel like they are coming into this as newcomers and are really like hyped to be here. So I think that's going to override any disappointment, even though the game was only on Tuesday, right? That last final game. Yeah. So it's not a big turnaround. I give you that.
Exactly. So
it's not a big turnaround.
This semi-final is going to be their 4th game in 10 days. Yeah. We're talking European Championship level stress levels for the physicality of this team. That's going to be tough, and especially if they do win the semi-final and go into the final, we're talking about 5 games in 11 days, and all of these at the highest intensity.
Yeah, and that's going to be the issue then with the squad size, and that's something that has always been an issue with Esbjerg. It looks like the 14 players they have is going to be the strongest squad they've had all season, and the thing is, if they're all fit, if there's no like knock-on effects from that Danish league final, then I think they'll still be okay. Another thing to bear in mind for this season and the whole journey is there was a bit of controversy with Estevan Polman, who came back from injury and was part of the squad but was on the bench for a few months, and then she left in fairly like scandalous is maybe too strong a word, but there was a lot of news about it. She spoke out about it, and the truth of what exactly happened there is probably somewhere in between what she was saying and what the club is saying. But that was another potentially key player who was out of the squad. But if the 14 they have are all fit and firing on all cylinders, then I think anything that happened on Tuesday, they'll be able to put behind them mentally. Physically is another thing, but mentally, I think that you're gonna be different for the Final Four in Budapest.
I hope so.
I hope for their sake.
I hope so. But I was reading a very interesting article on EuroHandball.com last night. Julian Rooks from Handballytics has done a breakdown of all the teams and what they are coming into this weekend with in terms of statistics. And he had a very interesting statistic about Team Esbjerg, that they play the second longest attacks in the Champions League over the whole season, with an average of 33.6 seconds per first shot taken. And I don't know if that's something to do with having such a small squad where they're thinking, we don't want to be running up and down too much here, let's slow down the attack a little bit. And if we're going to see that even more this weekend, really long, dragged out attacks.
I think so.
Yeah,
that was a question.
It was a question. I didn't finish the.
In the meantime,
right.
I just see on the screen here. There's some long comments. They could be questions as well, but I'm too blind. So maybe you can figure out what that said, and then after I'll give my answer, and then you can give these questions. Look at that.
I think
it's
those
gone into
are some.
full size. Thank you, Clemens, here to save the day yet again. Fans of our live shows in January will remember Clemens as the sometimes the villain, sometimes the hero of the live shows. At the moment, I think the amount of running around he's doing, definitely the hero. And it's got nothing to do with... exciting to see if Djur's defense will be able to stop Reistad. Viborg did a pretty good job in the semi-final of the Danish League. Obviously, Odense did enough to beat them in the final. You were talking about the length of the attacks. And I think that is very interesting, considering we have Henny Reistad in the center of that. And we'll all remember talking about her, coming into the Norwegian team and kind of just as the player who's like, right, I'm just going to get the ball, run down half the court, jump shoot from 12 meters and score. And clearly that's not the case with Esbjerg. And I think that could be a little bit to do with the squad size as well, that they try to manage the attack and really take as much time as possible with it, but also because of the players they have. So the focus is going to be very much then the center of it. The backcourt, 3 of 4 if you count Michaela Muller, who's kind of a wild card in this team, but Christina Breistel at left back, Henny Reistad at centre back, and Mette Tramborg at right back. They're 3 really big shooters as well. And the focus is very much on them as opposed to the wing players. And then the 3 line players they have in there, Frafjord, Ingstad, and Camp have all been pretty solid. So it's all about that diamond, as our old friend Tomer Brandigan used to love to coin, the diamond in the center of the court. That is going to be the focus for them, and you can see why they try to manage the clock then, because they try to set up the big shots or the balls into the line. Nothing comes incredibly easy due to the pace of the players, because they're fairly fast, but they are jump shooters, all of them, at the end of the day. And so that maybe they don't have the super speedy classic Danish centre back or Norwegian centre back in the team. So that's maybe why they control that a little bit more. And against Djur, that could be the perfect solution for them, because we've seen last season in the semi-final, really low-scoring game. What's the best way to stop one of the most dangerous teams in the world? Give them as few shooting options as possible, and controlling the clock and attack is a very good way of doing that.
Yeah, well, they're number 1 on the list as well for not turning the ball over. So that's obviously comes hand in hand with probably having the longest attacks as well. So no easy lunches. Is that the phrase? No free lunches. No free lunches. No free lunches with Team Esbjerg.
And I suppose another way of phrasing that, so I think we know what Reistad can do. We know the impact she's had on this team. We know the impact she had on the Final Four last year. But the question is, if she has a bad game, do Esbjerg have enough around her to compensate for that?
Yes. Well, the players I just mentioned there, I think Breistel, who's been a bit of a revelation this season for them, she's had her growing pains, I think, but Jesper Jensen has really stuck with her well. And Mette Tramborg is a brilliant right back as well, who can have a great game. So Henny Reistad doesn't have to shoot. She can be the assist giver. And if things aren't working for her or they need to mix it up, then they have Michaela Muller in there. And they can also play, 7v6 potentially very well with the amount of line players they have at their disposal. So, yeah, I don't think they don't need her to score 22 goals like she did with Vipers last year to win this competition or to win the semi-final. They have other tricks up their sleeve.
And probably one thing which I noticed being on hand at the games during the season was I was really, really impressed with Team Esbjerg when they came up against CSM Bucharest in Bucharest, and the amount of pressure they were under being in an arena like that, and how relaxed they remained, and they had that really small squad with them as well, and it never really seemed to bother them. So in terms of like maybe the occasion getting to them, I wouldn't really feed into that narrative either. I think they're quite a strong-willed team, and that probably also comes a lot from Jesper himself. You can even see in the timeouts how relaxed he remains, and I think mentality-wise they're on the ball.
Yeah.
So will we move on to the the hosts, what we call them.
We can't call them that.
Easy.
Careful, or Clemens is going to do something to your screen.
Well, let's not call them the hosts, but maybe the team that most of the fans in the arena will be supporting, and that is Dior. I think always going into a Final Four, we see Dior as the absolute favourites. They're perennial favourites and a challenge for anyone to overcome. That's how we look at the Champions League and the Final Fours, is who can actually challenge Dior this year. Do you get the same feeling this year, Brian?
Well, just before I answer that, there was a very good question sent in by, I think Axel is his name, in the comments. If lovely Claim is there, we'll just make the screen slightly bigger so I can read it. Thank you, Clemens. Dior has a lot of depth in their squad, but their attack still seems to be very dependent on Oftedal to play well. When she plays well, the whole team seems to play well, but the opposite also seems to be the case. And I think that's a very, very good point in terms of, if you look back at the loss they had in the Hungarian Cup to FTC. Stina was playing, but she had her thigh wrapped up and didn't score any goals. And I think the attack suffered because of that. And with the absence also then of Kari Bratzett in the attack, who's obviously out with pregnancy, you have that spine right down the middle of Dior, which is maybe a little bit more questionable than it normally is. I mean, we could turn around tomorrow now and see Stina playing perfectly fine, normal. We don't know really the status on her injury. But if she's anyway hampered by an injury, the team as a whole definitely does suffer. And that would be something to take in tomorrow's game. Think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you think, Alex?
I agree she is the absolute core of the team, but what's interesting about Dior is how spread out their attack is. While Stina is the most important player to make them play together, they're not very reliant on a single player to score goals. So Stina is actually their top scorer with 59 goals, but that's the 29th top scorer in the Champions League this year. Everything else is just completely spread out. So I think that squad depth and that approach is actually helpful, where, you know, they can look to other sides of the court, and maybe it will be Ryu at right back who just shows up and scores 10 goals. You know, that those options exist. So I think that's a real strength for this Dior team.
I think a player like Ryu has been a bit of a revelation for a lot of the Dior fans this season, playing at right back. And I saw her playing at home in their quarter-final, and she was quite fundamental and came up with some really, really important goals. And it's going to be great to see now, can she do it on the biggest stage? Because those questions are probably yet to be answered.
Yeah, I mean, she, internationally, she's been around for quite a while. I mean, she played in Paris before moving to Dior. She's been the star for Korea for a few years, and she's a right back, which is something they haven't really had in a while, actually. Last season, that was one of the big absences for them, was an actual left-handed right back. And yeah, I mean, there are options all over that court. I mean, I wouldn't be too worried about her performing on this occasion. I think she's been through enough to know what it takes, and she's part of a team that know what it takes to win. So even if she doesn't perform on the Saturday, they have enough to win the game. In the attack, one thing, but even if the attack is completely dire, they have this incredible goalkeeper trio with Amandine Lenoir in her last season now. Incredible that she has played in every single women's EHF Final Four, with Vardar first and then with Dior. And she hasn't played too much this season. She's kind of been in a behind-the-scenes role, but whenever she does come in and play, she's had a fantastic record. I wouldn't be surprised. Yet another swan song, folks. I wouldn't be surprised if she has an amazing weekend. And yeah, I mean, they do have weapons all over the court. I think one thing they can sometimes be found out with is like having a big backcourt jump shooter. I think Rio in that case is quite important there, because Enzaminko, Christiansen, Mette Hansen all like to take on players, all like to beat players and beat them with the speed. Oftedal, of course, as well. So maybe that is one potential weak point for them there. But even if the attack doesn't really work out, they have also like the goalkeepers, the line players, Lynn Blum and Karina Pintea, who are probably, Bratsit is out, but they probably have two of the other top 5 line players in the world. And I mean, just saying all this reminds me of what Jesper Jensen said. Like, their second team are probably among the best 10 teams in the world, and probably at times their third choice players could be in there as well. So yeah, things have to go really badly for them, and almost perfectly for Esbjerg, I think, but it's happened this season. It happened last season, so it's not as unfathomable as in seasons past.
And how big of a loss do you truly think that Kari Bratsit-Dali is? And in attack, you've mentioned, yes, they have line player replacements, but I think her real strength is in defence. How big of an impact is that going to have?
Well, Alex, I told you not to ask me about defence before this, because I know nothing about defence. I never defended in handball when I played. I should come on and score some goals. But in attack, I will answer that question. You didn't ask me, but I'll answer it anyway. Going back to Julian Rooks's article from Handballytics, when you look at the numbers, Kari Bratsit is definitely in top in terms of the numbers in the girl squad. But Lynn Blum and Karina Pintea aren't a million miles away from them in terms of stats-wise. It's only a few % behind. So you talked earlier about having a stacked squad. Even they're missing one of their best players. They still have 2 amazing line players that come in, and you sometimes only need one of them to perform over the weekend. And Lynn Blum, we've seen her playing over the years. She's one for the big occasions too. We've seen her playing for Sweden when she's outperformed everyone else on her own team. So she's used to kind of stepping up to the big occasions too.
Yeah, and they do have good defenders in other areas of the court as well. And yeah, like I said, even if the attack doesn't really work out, they have the goalkeepers. If the defense doesn't work out, they have the goalkeepers.
And just kind of to complete that point of their squad strength, the All-Star team for the Champions League was announced, and Dior had 4 players in that squad, as well as Ambrose Martin as the coach. So Lynn Blum was the line player, the best line player this season. Stina Oftedal at centre-back. Laura Glauser was the goalkeeper elected for the All-Star team, but it could have been any of those 3 goalkeepers to fit in there. And then Bratsit-Dali was the defender. So that just speaks to the just abundance of quality that they have. But again, I'll reverse this and say, okay, if we assume that Stina Oftedal might not be at her best level, who is the player who's going to take over and bring Gjør over the line in minute 45 when they're level against Team Esbjerg in the final and the semi-final?
I think it probably has to be Nzemenko, no? I'd imagine if she doesn't have a good weekend, and let's say Stina isn't up to task in terms of fitness, I don't know what they're going to do then for the centre back position then.
I still think in that case, I can envision Veronica Christiansen and Anna Mette Hansen at centre and left back.
True.
Like fighting, scrapping their way through. Like it'll be dirty, but in a good handballing way, And I think for Christiansen as well, it's kind of she's due one of these weekends with the team, and her role in the team has really grown through the years. Like remember the first season she was there, she was almost only a defender, and she's really grown in this team. Anna Mette Hansen has led Denmark to a world bronze medal now, and has always seemed to step up in whatever position she needs to for Gjør in these weekends. So yeah, even if choices 1, 2, and 3 don't really come off, they still have players like that who could get the job done.
With a team like Gjør, you always are looking for these holes, and then you don't actually find them.
There are holes there. There are holes there, of course, but it relies on a lot of things not going well.
But I think of all seasons, I can see a lot more holes in this Gjør team. There's some. I think they have the squad strength, but individual positions might not. They're not winning every position against another team, which generally is the case. So I think that makes it more exciting. They will have a big green arena behind them, which is an added benefit. but I think let's go into the matchup then. So we've talked individually about each team, their strengths, weaknesses, their route to the Final Four. Well, let's talk about the game. So the first game of the weekend is at 5:15 Central European time. The first game is Gior versus Team Esbjerg. We have the old incumbent, the team that's always there, the team that's always the favorite, versus the newcomers from Denmark. Who are the players that are key in this matchup? So when we look at those teams playing against each other, which position from either side might have a bigger advantage?
I'll let you answer this, Chris.
Well, I'm going to focus on Esbjerg here and kind of maybe pitch why they could win it. And we talked about the backcourt and the line players being so strong, but I think in order for them to win it, it's going to be the positions where they're not as strong as the opposition that need to work perfectly. And in that case, it is, and Nerea was kind of hesitant to mention it as well, it is the goalkeeper duo, because they do have two solid goalkeepers in Dina Ekerla and Rikke Poulsen, who at times have produced world-class performances, but not as regularly as their opponents. It's kind of the way we talk about Vincent Girard and the men's side. They're capable of it, but don't always produce it. One or both of them, I think, need to have a perfect game. And then the wing players, Sanna Solberg on the left and Marit Rosberg Jakobsen on the right, need to have a perfect game as well, because also the shooting from the wings isn't always brilliant. So I think those players are capable of having very good games, and if they do, then the backcourt and the line players will be able to do the rest. And we talked about the way they control the game. And so I think it relies on every position there and the weaker positions, the goalkeeper and the wing positions, to deliver.
Alex, would you see Gior as top favourites going into that?
I think for me, I would say they're favourites, and quite strong favourites. In a big part because of the physical strain on this Esbjerg team. I think that's a big driver from my perspective, and I think Esbjerg don't have many players per position better. So there's Henny Reistad, and I think in every other position it's Gior that has quite a comfortable lead. Therefore, I think Gior are quite easy favourites for me.
So we're all going for Gior then, are we? We're risking that again.
Are we not saying that? We say that for the end.
Okay, we say that for the end. Okay.
Yeah. But so let's. Is there anyone on Gior's side that is going to be the key difference maker? So we kind of talked about how it can be any one player popping up throughout the game. Brian, who do you think will pop up in this game?
I mean, there's so many to choose from, but I think I would like to see someone like Rayu have a great weekend. I think that just would be a nice finish to her season. So I think I would like that. But every other position, you could just name a list of Gior players where you'd put down to that. But I would like to see Rayu have a big weekend from right back.
I thought we were going to have a classic Brian lists every player in the team.
No. Just the one now. Just the one.
Ryu,
yeah.
Yun, He, Ryu. Or the other way around. Ryu, Yun, He.
There you go.
Yeah. How about you, Alex? Do you have a name that strikes?
I think Enzominko for me can just take over games. I think she's very dynamic. Again, if the game is stretched in any way, if Gior managed to speed up the game versus Team Esbjerg's slower style, it's going to be Enzominko to really dominate in that space. So that could be the breakout player for me in the semi-final.
Good. The other semi-final?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to the other semi-final. So we have Vipers versus Mets. I will repeat it that Mets have beaten Vipers twice this season and now have Grasadi on top of that. Despite that, Nerea Pena was quite confident going into this kind of final weekend, where she pretty much said, you know what, these games don't matter earlier in the season. We will come in and dominate when the time is right. Do you believe that's the case, Chris?
Yeah, I think particularly with these players, I think one thing that really plays into their favour is that these players know how to win these competitions. Of course, there's a lot of French players in the Mets team that know how to win international competitions and have against Norwegian players. And Emmanuel Maynard is a world champion as well with the Netherlands, so they're not like completely hopeless. But they had a really bad time in Budapest back in 2019, finishing in last place. So anything is an improvement on that. They do have the recent historical record, but the likes of Katrina Lunda, Nora Murk, Bella Gulden just know how to win this competition. They've done it, well, over and over again in two of their cases, and in Bella Gulden's case, single-handedly back in 2016. And yeah, I think in that case, it's going to be a real, if I'm allowed to go into like what the key position is here, it's going to be the centre back in attack. And we talked about Julian Rux and his stats piece earlier. There's a really good one, or a couple of really good ones on Vipers in particular, that they're great at forcing turnovers in defense. So they've done 12.6 per 50 attacks, which is a lot as well. And so they have a really strong defense in that sense for turning the ball over. You've got players like Susanna Tamori as well, who has been a dark horse in this team, has played such a big part in the defense. And you have Katrina Lunda in between the posts as well, who might have an average season, but when it comes to the Final Four, is ready to take over the game, as we heard her speak about on the podcast just a few days ago. And so it's going to be the fact that they managed to cause turnovers, but also turn the ball over quite a lot in attack as well. So I'm really interested in the Grace Zadi versus Bella Gulden battle, like these two centre backs, the way they control the game between the two of them, and which of the two can control the game better. Bella Gulden has seemed to found a new level, particularly in those quarterfinals against Krim. She was looking fantastic, the best I've seen her in a couple of seasons. And if she manages to control the game in that way and manages to keep her cool, which she almost always seems to, then they have enough weapons elsewhere to get the job done. So it really is, I think, which of those two playmakers, Gulden and Zadi, will perform better on the day.
I think people are going to think that Julian Rux is paying us for this podcast.
No, but
he mentioned his article.
He did an amazing
I do have an add-on.
job.
I do have an add-on point from his article about the Mets team. You were saying that Vipers do force a lot of errors, and with Mets, they are were in the earlier group stages were prone to a lot of turnovers themselves. But since Zadi has come in, that number has significantly reduced as well. So there's that aspect to it also. That's good. It's just in terms of pure statistics for all the nerds out there. It's going to be fantastic to see what happens, because it could be a bit of a chess match. Mm-hmm.
And I'll take the place of the person talking about their feelings and how they feel about the game. And I think Grace Zadi is the big difference maker. I think she's going to rip apart this Vipers team. Gut feeling, purely gut feeling. I think she will be driven from her exit in Rostov and really want to prove a point that she made that exit to win the Champions League. And for me, there's a bit of drive there. I'm not as confident in Vipers in this one.
Do you remember the World Championship final, France against Norway? Not against exactly the same players, but against some of the same players that Grace Zadi for that second half was completely found out, as was all of that French attack.
So, Alex.
It's not impossible, of course, but yeah.
But that first half,
Grace
Zadi was not found out. She was in a lot of comfort there.
Yeah.
So,
all right. I think we're knocking on the door here of time. Time is not our friend here, so I don't know how we want to wrap this one up.
Well, we actually got a comment from Handballytics himself, Julian Rux, who's been watching. Thanks, Julian. And of course, I love it, guys. You talk about thanks for all the mentions.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome, Julian. Keep up the good work.
I suppose we have to do predictions, right?
Yeah. There's one question there as well. Who was that saying? Did Esbjerg bring a left-handed right wing to the final weekend? Can you bring that up, Clemens, just so I can see the name?
That's Kishan Check 10.
Oh, very good. And yes, they did. So Marit Rosberg Jakobsen was on the list, at least on the website. And so she is their out-and-out right wing. And then Lena Myers can also play in the wing if necessary. But she's more of a defender these days.
Look, that is informed. That is so informed, Chris. I saw that question and I was thinking, oh, this is a tough one. I don't know. I'll keep quiet. I don't know if we collectively have an answer for that. But Chris O'Reilly coming in clutch. Left-hander is there on the right wing for Esbjerg. Good. So let's talk about predictions.
Alex, have you stopped talking because we can't hear you? Because I think we've lost contact with Alex. You might have to call us again there on the phone. Well, there we go. Live Twitch, everyone. Alex, can you
And
hear us?
we're back. No.
Oh. No.
Hello. We're back.
We're back. Yes.
We're back.
Well, I think we did pretty well, seeing as that was like a good hour and a half of being on the same call until we finally lost you. So yeah, you just have to forgive us for that, but that's what it's all about. Huh? That's what it's all about.
Let's move on and talk about predictions.
With one big cock up. Predictions, Alex. We didn't hear the rest of what you said, but I think it was more complimenting me, so we'll just leave it at that. Go. So predictions.
Predictions. Let's start with the first game. We have Jur against Esbjerg.
All right.
Oh, someone has to go for something silly, but I feel like this won't be my silly pick. I think I'm going to stick with Gjør just for the amount of options that they have. Keep it simple.
Score?
Score Gjør +3.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the Danish hype for Alex, as he is in Copenhagen at the moment, and say Gjør +2. It's going to be close.
Henny Reistad, 15 goals.
Yeah.
Team Esbjerg win by 6. No.
Going against everything you said for the whole podcast.
Could happen.
No, I think it'll take 2. I'm doubting Henny Reistad here for absolutely no reason. But I think Gjør take it quite comfortably. +5.
Wow.
And pull away in the second half.
Mets Vipers.
All right, here I'll go for a googly one, and I'll say Vipers have learned their lessons from the past 2 games, and Vipers for the win. Normark to have an absolute stormer.
What do you say, Alex?
Mets take it by 2.
You didn't give us
I didn't
how
give a
many?
score.
How much? Do you?
One goal.
Yeah, I think Vipers as well. I think Vipers will win by extra time.
How many goals? They'll win by.
They'll win by extra time. They'll win by 1 after extra time.
They have.
I like that. I think it's likely we see 1 extra time in this semi-final. So that sets up, for the 2 of you, that sets up a final between Vipers and Gjør. Who's taking that?
That's too early for that kind of prediction.
Handball will be the winner.
We've been talking about we've been talking about these different semi-final matchups, but it's interesting how things change going into the final, where there's just completely different dynamics that goes into it. So we have, Vipers versus Gjør. Let's do a quick one there. What position is the most important between those 2 teams?
Goalkeepers.
Goalkeepers I think is probably the most important.
And just say, it's funny you say about the dynamics, because we were having the exact same conversation last year, pre-Final Four. It's like, well, if Brest beat Gjør, then they'll win the final. Unless they play Vipers in the final, then they'll lose. That's exactly what happened in the end.
That's exactly what happened.
For once we were right.
Yeah. So goalkeepers, yeah. And the other
Goalkeeper was the most important.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think Djur should win it, but it's a toss-up, lads. It's a toss-up. Goalkeepers will decide. Lunda versus Leno. Classic.
Oh, it's too hard to call.
It is too hard.
It's too hard
I
to
feel
call,
kind
isn't
of
it?
sad making a final prediction now. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do that, Alex. Don't put me through that again. I think we'll leave it there. Wait for their semi-final.
Well, I'll
What
say
about the other.
I'll say Mets taking it all the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Grazadi
Wow.
lifting the trophy and waving to her friends in Russia.
Well, we have it there, folks. Esbjerg are going to win the Final Four this year. That's usually what happens in this case.
Yeah. So we only can pick 3 teams.
Yeah.
So there's always one left over that we always get it wrong on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's whatever happens this weekend, it's going to be a blast. Anything else to leave us with, Alex, before you enjoy the weekend in Copenhagen? You're going to be watching the final, right?
I'll watch every game, of course,
every
Chris. Don't diminish my handball watching ability.
Yeah.
I'll find a way to watch every single game.
Yeah, you're going to be playing beach handball, though, aren't you, tomorrow?
I'll be playing beach handball, but I do have Via Play on my phone, which
nice.
will broadcast within that.
During the timeouts.
During the time.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for only dropping off the line once. That was good going. And I think that was probably our fault that happened. And yeah, you'll be live, as you said, on Twitch for most of the weekend when we go to Cologne in a couple of weeks. So yeah, you can get ready for that. We'll be here in Budapest for the rest of the weekend. Brian on social media duty.
Yes,
What are you most looking forward to do?
Just getting those classic reactions. I think it's stuff you see on various channels over the next year and over the summer as promotion for next season. So that's always nice to get those really, really special clips. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Good stuff. And I'll be...
Any special projects you're working on, Brian, over the weekend? Anything for TikTok that's going to get 10 million views?
We'll see. Just stay tuned to TikTok, you might see.
There you go. Nice little plug there. And I'll be on EHF TV commentating. And if you're in a country which has TV rights, VPNs are good for that. So if you want to hear my voice and not someone else's, VPNs. Definitely not allowed to say that, but look, it's Twitch. Isn't it, Clemens? Huh? Who cares? It's fine. EHFTV.com, your destination for this weekend's Final Four. Thank you everyone who watched as well and all the great comments. It's nice to have you involved, and we'll have more live shows in Cologne. We'll have probably 3 of them, right? Up to 3 live shows, at least 2 anyway. And thank you for joining, and make sure to stay tuned on Twitch for the whole weekend, because we'll have a lot more of Nedzat and Anya Althaus as well, bringing coverage from the arena. So fun times, and a lot more fun for Clemens to do. Hopefully he'll get mentioned a few more times over the course of the weekend for positive things. Any parting words?
And
Alex?
lastly, if you have joined at halfway through this video or this live stream and missed Nerea Pena, this conversation and the full podcast the full live stream will go up as a podcast. So follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram at Handball Hour, and like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.
Thank goodness we have you here, Alex. Good stuff.
We almost forgot what we're doing there.
We do a podcast, guys. We're not just live.
We do have one last comment from a fan here. I think I can barely read it, but it's Tim, our fan.
Vipers winner Final Four.
Vipers winner Final Four. They have his prediction. Thank you very much for that last comment.
Good stuff.
So that's it. That's all from us. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the Final Four. Bye-bye.